Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 30 of Ask the CEO with Avrohom. Today's guest is the CEO of Penguin Strategies, a company who helps B2B technology companies better meet their business growth goals through inbound marketing. They're especially focused on cybersecurity, cloud, IT infrastructure, and telecom technologies. In the past 15 years, he has co-founded and been put on executive leadership in B2B technology startups in the US and Israel. It is my pleasure to welcome Perry Nalevka. Welcome, Perry.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Oh, great having you here. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. It's a good day.
Nice. Where are you calling in from?
Well, I'm actually in Boston this week, so I'm calling you from a hotel in Cambridge, just outside one of our main partners, HubSpot. Blocks away, so that's where I am today.
Nice. Where do you call home?
Ra'anana, Israel. That's home and headquarters to Penguin Strategy.
Beautiful. I was in Israel last August, and hopefully we'll be back soon as well.
Well, then you'll have to come visit us next time.
Absolutely. So Perry, tell me a little bit about Penguin Strategies and what kind of solutions you offer to your customers.
Sure. After spending the better part of the last 20 years in B2B tech, numerous roles from coding all the way through sales and marketing, I felt there was a need for a services company that could provide better marketing and sales support services to that market. I felt that was kind of a passion of mine, and I started working individually as a consultant, and then I realized that this is something we could scale up. And I joined two other like-minded people who partnered and co-founded Penguin Strategies with me, Mark Fisher and Neely Mulvin. And we started this company almost 3.5 years ago, and it's I guess we were right because we've grown quite rapidly.
Nice. So give me an idea of what kind of problems does your company help solve?
So typically, when we started with what we typically see is companies, and this doesn't matter how big or small the company is that they've built a great technology. They've solved some great technological problems, whether it be in the areas that you mentioned before, cybersecurity, cloud, and the rest. And then they have a problem on the scaling their marketing, mostly on the marketing side, getting out the right type of content, translating the geniuses that they have in their heads, and explaining that to the world, because not usually these people are fairly technical. Their messages are sometimes too technical to get out into the broader world, to the people making those business decisions, and they need help with that. And that's on a broad scale. And how do we do that from strategically, specifically, and in a scalable fashion is something that we help our customers do from a high level.
I could actually relate to that because my industry is telecom. And I've seen so many businesses in this industry, and I know exactly what you're talking about, where people talk about benefits and features as opposed to pain points.
Right. I think Seth Godin speaks about it a lot. It's marketing is more about telling the story. People want to understand the story. They want to connect, not with the company, with the people, and that's it's a challenge that we try to help fix. Or fill, and so that's kind of where we fit in. So from a broader perspective, we need to provide more specific services than just this high level. So we have to break it down into content strategy, social media strategy, marketing automation, and email strategy, and then actually going ahead and sometimes that's the easy part because there's a lot of great thinkers out there, but then going out and executing that on a month-to-month basis, writing that content on a month-to-month basis, bringing the right designs, the visual aspect. So we've got a full design team and content development team, social media, and then the technical side, right? How do you get that out and onto your website and technically put that up there, integrate it into your sales force, and make sure that marketing and sales are aligned. There's a lot of aspects there. I don't want to bore everybody with all the details, but that's kind of what my team does. Like I mentioned before, we launched the company in Israel, but the message seemed to resonate, and very quickly we started getting leads from U.S.-based companies, and Today we've got offices in the Silicon Valley on the West Coast, here in Boston, and of course still in Israel.
Very nice. So take me through an example. So let's say you have a telecom company that's looking to become a cloud provider, and they're struggling with leads. How would you help this business?
So at the beginning, what we want to understand together with our customer is, not only is who their target audience is. You said it in what you just said. A lot of times they're trying to reach service providers, cloud providers. Although that world is continuously changing. What is a carrier? What is a service provider? But identifying that is part of the work. But more specifically, who within those organizations are making the decisions around the technology that you're delivering. And even if you have the answer to that, it's still not enough. So let's just say that was the CTO or the CIO or something like that. What does that organization look like? Because the CTO isn't sitting around waiting for your technology to make a decision. He's got a big team, and typically in the bigger companies, which is where our expertise lies, who is influencing their decisions. Sometimes it's other people in their teams. It could be developers. It could be business owners. It could be other departments. And once we have a full understanding of who's mapped out, not only who the decision makers is, but who's influencing those decision makers, then we can start developing a strategy on how to reach all of those people. So that sometimes there could be hundreds of people within an organization that are important to have heard of your company or technology in order for a decision to be made. So it's quite complex, and we need to help companies map that out, and then build out the strategy and build out the content and the messaging that will resonate with those different people. Connect with them, whether it be on social media, where they're reading their content, and identify where they are. Get them to come and listen to us. Whether digitally or physically, and move from there.
Gotcha. And what I love about what you're saying is that this goes so much deeper than just identifying the decision maker. So what you said is that we need to identify also the people that influence the decision maker, so that you could really become super targeted and laser focused on your objective.
Absolutely. In the B2C market, everybody talks about influencer marketing. You want to sell a dress or a toy. You want to get in front of those people that are assessing those toys, the big names, they have big Twitter followings. The same thing goes in technology. Both inside organizations and outside of organizations, there are influencers, and we call it influencer marketing. It's a different dynamic, but it's the same idea, right? Those influencers are sometimes the people within your organization, and sometimes there are some big bloggers or other people that have a lot of say in your area, and we want to make sure that they've heard of us. They're mentioning us. They want to learn more about us. We want to feed them quality information.
Gotcha. Now, why specifically the technology sector?
Yeah, well, I think being part of the second largest technological community or a startup community in the world, only second only to Silicon Valley. It's a question that's very obvious to us, but of course the other reason is, me and my partners. That's where we've been for the last 20 years, and that's not even an answer enough. We're just passionate about it. I've been through numerous startups. I enjoy working with and for them. I'm an advisor with a few companies. I just enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking to founders. I enjoy talking to technology companies. I find what other people find sometimes they think it's boring, but I think it's exciting. And that's where that's where we can bring added value. If you were manufacturing pencils, I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that market. If you were, advertising a mobile app for some game, that's not an area that I understand or I can connect with, and I don't think I can bring added value. This is an area that we bring a lot of value. We're very passionate about, and right away when we connect with a founder or even a VP marketing or anybody in a startup organization, we've sat at where they've sat, and that is super important for them, and it's an instant connection.
Absolutely, and the areas where you're passionate, that's where you gain the most traction.
That's correct. That's correct. And I think that there's a lot of that world is so big. I don't think we'll ever run out of work to do for any time in the near or distant future. Especially as cloud and telecom and cyber, they all kind of come together, and they keep changing. I mean, think about it. When we started with that, 30, 40, 50 years ago with the mainframe. Everybody said, and then the PC came out, and everybody said, "Oh, the mainframe, that's old news." Then all of a sudden, we're back to the mainframe model, right, where everything's in the cloud. Well, guess what? That's going to change again as IoT we move along, and IoT takes charge here, and all of a sudden that knowledge, that intelligence needs to move back from the cloud closer to what they're calling the edge. Cisco's calling it the fog, right?
Fog networking.
Exactly. So, you know what I mean? It's the world is kind of keeps going round and round. What goes around comes around, and it's never going to be simple. There's always going to be complex problems to be fixed, and then of course that opens us up to a whole new slew of cyber security risks. If those automated cars, or even something as simple as your kitchen appliances. You don't want people to hack that. I mean, there's just every new thing opens a new can of worms, and thankfully keeps everybody busy and employed.
Yeah, isn't that interesting how the cybersecurity industry is blowing up now? Like you said, somebody doesn't want to get their automated kitchen hacked or their lights turning on and off. And then, so now cybersecurity is going to be the next hot thing on the market.
Yeah, it's huge. And as soon as you think you've heard it all the cybersecurity solutions are available, then, someone comes up with a new problem and a new way to fix it, or a new way to hack it, or it is incredible. I mean, in Israel and Silicon Valley, how many cybersecurity companies there are. You think how much is there to do, and there's just unlimited amounts of things to do, from securing IoT, manufacturing. I just met a company that's taking their IoT solution to ranching. I mean, they're based in Texas, and we're talking about their new solution, and they're focusing on how they're going to keep track of those ranches. I mean, that makes sense, right? And it's endless. I mean, and I love that's what I love to do. I love to hear the stories. I love to hear the new technology, how they're going to do it, why it's different than tracking a car, tracking a cow. I mean, it's never ending, like I said.
Yeah, I read an interesting article about IoT. So for those of us that are unfamiliar with that, IoT is the Internet of Things. That's where you're bringing the internet down to, like you said, the edge, the minutia of life. And there was one company that was using IoT to prevent poaching of, I don't know, rhinoceroses or some other animal. What they do is they fit the animals with these, I don't know, necklaces. And then it has a sensor that detects the heart rate. When it detects that the animal's under extreme stress, that's indicative of being hunted. So then they converge all the forest rangers to that location, and they catch all the poachers.
Right.
Yeah, so it's an interesting. The
applications are endless. The applications are really endless. And then, so yeah, that's the. So the technologies are there, and then then now that you've built the technology, just because you've built it doesn't mean they will come. We need to figure better ways to get out there and generate leads and deals.
Yeah, and something interesting you said about technology and why technology and your passion for it, and it's so true that people do equate technology to being boring, especially the ones that may not be technologically literate. But I think it has more to do with the fact that people speak in buzzwords as opposed to bringing it down to earth. So, like, for example, we were just talking about applications of IoT, and it was very not boring. It was very relatable to the general public. It's when people talk about technology just in terms of nuts and bolts that it gets boring. Yeah.
And an interesting, so I keep finding it interesting that as I meet these companies, they don't realize, or what they're not doing is using technology, for example, for their marketing, right? And to change gears for a second, there's so much to be done in order to use technology to better to better market your products and also to better use your budget. So today everything is measurable. Everything is measurable. Nothing should happen on your website without your knowledge. Every dollar that you spend on marketing should be measured, and then scrutinized to make sure that you're really leveraging your dollars to the max. And that's really the level playing field that everybody's talking about. Cisco or those big guys can go and spend millions and millions of dollars on advertising, and I don't know, maybe even do a Super Bowl ad. But that's for many of the companies that I work with would be a big waste of money, even if they could afford it, because they're looking to, if we talked about service providers, they may be targeting 1,000, 500 companies in the whole world, right? That's all they need. That 500 companies that may equate to 5,000 people, to 10,000 people in the whole world. That's all that they need to get in front of. And if they could find, they can use technology to figure out how to get in front of those specific people rather than trying to get in front of 1 million people, which are not relevant. Just those 10,000 people. That's where using your smarts and technology and proper strategy really fits in. And that's kind of where we come in as well.
Excellent. So who would be an ideal client for you?
So really any company that's any technology company that's trying to sell into what I would call medium to large enterprises. That's the high level. Our favorite, the good fits are usually, what we call classic tech. You mentioned for cyber, cloud, IoT, infrastructure, marketing technologies. We're less into medical devices and those things, but so that's the one part. The second are companies, startups that have already gone to market or ready to go to market. So if you're still trying to figure out your product, it's not time to scale your marketing yet. When you're ready to scale your marketing, that's really a good fit for us. So that would give you an idea of the types of companies that are a good fit from us. And it doesn't have to be a startup. It doesn't have to be a company that just got their, what we call Series A. They just got investment. It can be larger companies. I mean, we've worked with companies like NetApp, which are huge technology companies. Nice Systems, if you've heard of.
Yep.
So those are fairly large companies that have, a lot of times they go to market with new products or they need help in certain areas, as well as a lot of smaller startups that you may never heard of. We have a lot of we actually got to work a little bit with Mobileye a few years ago when they were not as popular as they are today. So those are big examples, and then there's smaller ones that companies that you may not have heard of, like a company like SentinelOne, which is a very up and coming cybersecurity company. We've been working with them for over a year and a half, and they recently just got, I think it was $80 million of investment to scale out their marketing and sales organizations. So those are just some quick examples.
Nice, and we'll keep that in mind. So Perry, tell me, how did you get started with all this?
Quite by accident.
Isn't that always the case?
It is. I would, if someone would have asked me 4 or 5 years ago, you're gonna own and manage a marketing agency, and 4 to 5 years from now, I would have laughed. I mean, I'm a startup guy. I'll be in a startup. My last position was in 2011. I was VP Biz Dev and Marketing of a startup that actually sold. It was a public startup, but we sold it to service providers. A mobile voice over IP, mobile PBX type solution, and probably very related to your industry. And when I left that company, I spent a lot of time building up networks and partnerships and leads through leveraging LinkedIn and social media. And because before I started that company, I really wasn't a sales guy. Didn't have a lot of connections, and LinkedIn was just coming in. I figured out a way to leverage that. So when I finished at that startup, I was tapped to help a few companies do the same thing for them. And I started doing consulting. As I was trying to figure out my next startup, I started it and failed at a couple of startups along the way, during 2011, 2012, but I kept getting these consulting business, to kind of keep myself afloat. And then I met Neely, who I mentioned before, and she had just come out of a startup, and she was telling me about content marketing and how at their company, they build a content marketing machine basically that generated leads almost magically. And I started learning about that, and I said, you know what, that is something that some of my companies I'm consulting with might be interested in. While she was in between jobs, why don't you help me and consult with some of the companies I'm working with? And all of a sudden we had 10 customers. And I stopped working on one of my startups and started focusing on this. And like I said, Penguin, we decided, you know what, we need to start a company. And in fact, we looked at each other and said, okay, well, what are we going to call the company? Because we should call it something. And I said, I don't want to go through this whole long, so we gave ourselves a 24-hour time limit. We came up with a name, and website was up 24 hours later, and the rest is history, right? So, 6 months later, we decided to add, another co-founder because we were doing mostly content and social media consulting. We wanted to add marketing automation, and we partnered with HubSpot, and that actually just, we just took off from there.
Beautiful. What were some of the ups and downs that you went through as you were building your business?
Since at least from my management background I was very products focused, right? I was working for startups or selling a product. Once you build your product, technically your margins are very high. Services business is much different. So realizing that and learning that took a while. So, about a year into the business, like I said, we had a lot of customers. We had a few employees already. I think within our first year, we had 4 or 5 employees, and today we have 25. And what I was realizing is we're working harder and harder, but we're making less and less. So I had to figure out how to break that dynamic. So that was a big challenge. In fact, at that point, it was like almost a year right into our, almost after our first year, I actually took a real strategic look at the company. I broke it apart and rebuilt it again in a way that it would be profitable. So that us as the founders could start taking salaries and build it properly. So almost restarted the company about a year after we started it. I had to take a couple steps back. And then since then, we've continuously grown in a much more healthy and profitable manner, because as you know, a company that's not profitable cannot exist.
Exactly. And that takes a lot of courage to be able to go back and re-engineer your entire company.
Yes, yeah, and part of that was to make sure that we work with the right types of companies that we rebuilt our story so that we know who we are and what we're doing, what are the problems that we can fix, and we can coherently tell that story and make sure that the companies that we work with would be a good fit. So one of the big changes was that we were doing a lot of work for companies tactically, helping them fix here or there, maybe write a blog or do something very, very tactical. And those are very low margin, not, value added services, typically done by freelancers. And we needed to take it away from that. And we needed to get more involved in the strategic elements. We noticed that the companies that we did well with, they were happy, we were happy, they were profitable, were the companies where we were seen as an extension of their team, but also as a close advisor to them. So almost to the fact where, they basically open up the books and say, okay, help us figure out what we're going to do, rather than you go do this and don't ask us why, we just want you to do this. You're a vendor. So we moved into a more strategic partnership with our customers rather than being a vendor of them.
Nice. Yeah, because being a vendor and doing tactical work, that's just a commodity. And what you provided them is something that they can't get anywhere else.
Exactly.
Great. Perry, what keeps you motivated every day?
So it's a couple of things. It's changed slightly over time, but today what keeps me most motivated is my team. The fact that we've built something and we've got really 25 fantastic technology marketers. Really, I think one of the best teams, the best team I've ever worked with in my career, which has been more than more than 20 years, as I mentioned before. I enjoy working with every single one of them, which is something that I find invigorating and exciting, and it motivates me to make sure that we have a business to keep them going and grow, and and find more people and employ more people. So that's I will not lie. There's an element of Zionism that goes into this. Every employer that I hire is another another person that's going to be have work locally or in our Israeli office. I do obviously hire some U.S. people as needed. That's not, to help the business, you got to do what you got to do.
That's of national pride.
National pride. There you go. So there's that. I think that it's interesting that Israel's known for having the best technology. I don't think it has been known to have the best marketing people, and I think that we're trying to change that dynamic. We're seeing a lot of American companies come and work with us and say, okay, there's great technology in Israel. They must know how to do marketing, so it's a great brand as well. But also the people that we work, the companies that we work with, are just exciting to work with. I mean, they're at a fast pace. It's just very invigorating. I enjoy it. I enjoy everything.
Beautiful. Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about how your company is built on your people. So it's such a beautiful thing to hear the way your people motivate you.
What can I say? We've been very blessed, very fortunate to have built one of the best teams. I think best marketing agencies, best marketing teams in Israel. And I'm as I travel the U.S. and meet. I mean, I'm actually here for a HubSpot partner conference to meet with hundreds of other marketing agencies, and I feel that we're the best of them. We're up there at the top. In fact, we're one of in the top 2 percentile of HubSpot partners worldwide. I don't know if you're familiar, but HubSpot has over 2,500 partner agencies, and they rate them in different tiers, and we are in the top percentile of that process. And so I take a lot of pride in that, and I do not take credit for it. I take pride on it. I think that the team that I work with have just done a phenomenal job.
Now that's awesome. But I'm just curious: are you originally from Israel, or are you're from here?
Well, neither. I'm originally from Canada.
Close enough. An extension of the United States.
Yeah. I moved to Israel, or immigrated to Israel when I was 16. So that was a long time ago with my family. So I'm definitely more Israeli than I am Canadian. So I've been there since I was 16. I did the mandatory army, and I did spend 4 years in New York with the startup, between 2002 and 2006. So I did get a good feeling of how the American systems work here, and it's. So, in most of my business, or most of my time when I'm traveling, it's usually to the U.S., although we have a growing European customer base, and I do get to Europe every once in a while as well.
Nice. What part of Canada?
Toronto.
Toronto. Okay. Yeah. So I have family in Montreal. I spent a lot of time there, but I have been to Toronto quite a bit as well. So that's really nice. The reason why I asked, because you don't sound like the typical Israeli.
Yes, I don't have. I have a very generic American accent because I've just been away for so many years. It's all mixed up. But yes.
Nice. So Perry, the statistic that many small businesses or many startups within the first year fail. Where do entrepreneurs go wrong?
Well, I don't think that. First of all, I don't think anything's wrong with that. Not. Sometimes I've been there a few times, and I think if it's going to fail, that's the right time for it to fail. I think if a company fails after years in business, that's really sad. I think one thing that entrepreneurs need to know is when to kill an idea, and it's really hard, especially when you almost get married to it. You fall in love with it, and you're very passionate about it. So knowing when to let go is a really hard thing to say and to do. And then, although, I would say that if you're really sure and you're passionate about it, go to the ends of the earth with it. So that's one thing. I think that's one piece of advice. Second is never go it alone. I mean, the statistics also say that single founded companies have a much higher fail rate. Investors are less interested in funding you if you only have one founder. So that's another thing, is making sure that you have more than one founder. I think that's one of the successes that we've seen, is that we have more than one founder. I think that's made it very helpful for us to succeed. And third, getting the right mentorship, getting good outside mentors, especially the ones that'll be brutally honest. Brutal honesty is really hard to come by. People are sometimes, especially, although Israelis are really good at being brutally honest, a lot of times Americans and even Europeans are too polite. But I think that that's something that's really needed if you're a founder, or if you're a mentor, or somebody that's really giving a very honest opinion. So those are areas. And the other thing is, the final thing is, as a founder or the founder CEO, you need to find and hire people smarter and better than you. It seems like it's on the one hand, it seems logical, but it seems counterintuitive. But it's exactly what you need in order to be successful. Is you need to have the best people, and they're usually better than you in the area that you hire them for. So that a lot of times I get asked questions about marketing and I don't have the answers, because I have someone who's much smarter than me doing that. If you have asked me specific questions about SEO, I can give you the high layman's view about it and what the services that we do. But if you want to understand technical SEO, you got to talk to my SEO guy. He's 100 times smarter than me at that. Same thing on a number of other areas. If I had to be smart about everything, definitely the company would fail.
Right. Yes. And I heard other business owners tell me the same thing. What's interesting, I just learned something, is that you said that you should have multiple co-founders. So that's something new that I learned. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
So Perry, where are you looking to take this business, let's say in 5 years?
Well, I have a very clear 5-year plan, which is another area that's very important, is to make sure that you create a vision and a plan. Maybe you don't need a 20-year plan, but you should definitely know where you want to be in 5 years and have a specific plan where you want to be in the next 12 months in order to hit that plan. So, in our first 3 years, we were able to double ourselves every year, which is something we've slowed down this year, from a strategic planning perspective, in order to rebuild our infrastructure so that we can grow again. And in 5 years from now, I expect us to be, to be a lot bigger. I could even be very specific about how much bigger I expect us to be. Probably about 5 times bigger than we are today. And that's going to come through organic and potential mergers and acquisitions. I expect that we'll also own some type of a technology, meaning we'll probably build a startup within the startup and do something along those lines. So that's from a high level, where I expect us to go.
Really nice. And the one thing that you said that really is a big part of being a successful entrepreneur and business owner is having your goals and having your plans.
Oh, it's of absolute importance. You need to be, if there's another piece of advice that I would give it is your company needs to be on what I call through reading a book that I'll mention in a second, is you need to be on an operating system yourself. And there's something called the entrepreneurial operating system. It is, and there's a lot written about it, and it's something you can Google online, and it really walks you through how to do it from start to finish, from how to build a vision properly, how to run meetings, how to set goals, and to continuously make sure you're working towards them. And it's an incredible tool, and I highly recommend it as a mandatory function of for any CEO, for any company that's growing small to big.
As a technology person, it really resonates with me, the term entrepreneurial operating system.
Yeah. The book's called Traction, and you should definitely get on top of it.
I'm getting that book today.
There you go.
Great. Perry, if you could rewind the clock, let's say 12 months, would there be anything differently that you do?
Yes. Sometimes you make mistakes and you need to learn from those mistakes. We grew extremely rapidly for 3 years. So, and I got to just kind of reminding it, this is a services business. It's not a company that we got a bunch of millions of dollars of funding, ran out and hired people. We could only grow as fast as the business would feed us. At the beginning of last year, through just the same way we got a lot of new business, almost to the fact that we doubled our customer count within a 3-month period. Something that is not, if you think about a services business, everything is done by the team. So all of a sudden you've got double the amount of work to do, and you have the same team, and you have to go out and hire really quickly in order to service those companies. And as an entrepreneur, as a sales guy, you just want to bring in that business and do it. And I think what we did is we did that way too quickly within that short period of time. We made a few mistakes we did some shortcuts on hiring. We did, we wanted to make everybody happy, and we did not. So that was something that if I would go back 12 months, I would definitely have made that process of onboarding those customers slower, even at the cost of losing some of them. And it's something that we learned, we learned the hard way, and we don't do anymore. We make sure that we do things properly. So that's something that I'll always be honest about my my pros and cons, or my faults and not. But as I say to my people, and one of our one of our culture part of our culture code is transparency. So we make sure I make sure everybody knows the good, the bad, and then the ugly. So that's part of it. And you know what, we learned, and we're much stronger for it now. But that's the only thing I might have changed, at least if I went back 12 months ago.
Beautiful. Perry, what do you like doing for fun? So last Thursday I did one of those things. I love camping. So whenever I can, I'll call up my kids and say, hey, get ready. I'm coming home early today. We get in the car and we go camping. Usually it's for one night, sometimes for 2 nights. So that's my favorite thing to do is camping, hiking. I do some running. Those are the right after this, and maybe if I have a few minutes, I think I have an hour. So my next meeting, I might go for a little run around especially when I go to new places. I love to do that. It's a great way to see the vicinity that you're in. I'm not big to go on tours and things like that, but that's kind of the things I like to do for fun. And I love reading, especially management books, as I'll always be recommending really good management books like the one I just mentioned before. So that's another one. So the other management book, by the way, if I'm already going to recommend a really good management book, is one called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's again a mandatory reading for any CEO, especially in the technology industry. It's by a guy named Ben Horowitz, who is well known from the VC called Andreessen Horowitz. So another management book recommendation. Sorry, but that's those are the things I really love doing, as well as traveling. But I'd rather travel for fun than for business. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I appreciate those book recommendations. Everybody I talk to always has amazing suggestions for books. And like the Mishnah says, a wise person is a person who learns from everybody. So I appreciate you sharing that.
By the way, that's another great book.
Yes, exactly. And by the way, we have a lot in common. So next time I'm in Israel, we have to go on a hike together.
Where we go? Where are you in? Are you in New Jersey?
I'm in Muncie, New York.
Okay. Well, I'll be in Teaneck this summer. So
nice.
We connect.
Yes, I'll show you some of my favorite hiking parks.
Well, we're coming. I'm coming, bring the family for a few weeks.
Beautiful.
From work and pleasure, and we're actually just debating where we're going to spend a week of fun. So it'll definitely be somewhere where we can do hiking.
Beautiful. Perry, I know you're a busy guy. I'm going to let you go in just a minute. Just before we do, how do people connect with you?
I'm still a huge fan of email. But LinkedIn LinkedIn and email are definitely the places I connect mostly with. And then Twitter's a third. I mean, I've got a huge Twitter following. I do a lot of tweeting on technology and all the areas that I'm passionate about. So, over the years, I've built a huge Twitter and LinkedIn following. So, those are my main areas. But I would say, just connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message. It's pretty easy to find me, and I always answer, and that's the best thing.
That's a rare skill these days.
It is. Because I feel for even if I get cold calls, I always answer, even if it's to say I'm not interested, because I know how people follow up because nobody's answering them. I prefer, like, as a sales guy, someone tell me that they're not interested, and I don't have to waste my time following up anymore. So I always try to be as courteous as I can in those same situations.
That's really nice. It's an honorable trait. So we're going to get your LinkedIn information in the show notes so that people can pull it up and connect with you.
Perfect.
Great. Perry, are there any words of wisdom that you'd like to leave the audience with? As if the entire half hour we've spoken wasn't.
I would say, it's really hard to find, I don't think it's really hard to find something that you're really, that you enjoy going to work every day. But if you can pursue it passionately, there's nothing like working at a place or, on something that's you're passionate about. It almost, it's like they say, it's not work anymore. And if you don't have to work, then life is good.
Beautiful. Perry, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. It was great meeting you.